Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Again, Rob Teague, Manager CMMC Services. Joining me as usual is our CISO and CMMC guru, Dr. Thomas Graham. And we're going to take a few minutes and talk about logging capabilities, kind of why it's important, why they need to focus on it, and how you can leverage expert RPOs and C3PAOs to assist you in coordinating a lot of that stuff. So the logging is very vital to NIST 800-171 and the strategy, the overall security strategy of your network, right? Because that's where you're going to get a lot of your um, malicious activity is going to be detected in logging outside of the AV and things like that. But Thomas, I know as we were developing our enclave in preparation for CMMC, this was a big topic of how we were going to tackle this. And it's a question we get often. Do I need, if I'm doing a cloud service enclave, do I need to have logging? Can I do the logging, et cetera? So why don't you touch a little bit on how we kind of thought through our capabilities and then the avenue that we took?
Sure. So when we started looking at logging, there's a couple of components that you really need to think about. One is you have to think about the individual systems or services that are part of your CUI enclave. Let's face it, you're going to have probably laptops, desktop servers. You probably have third-party systems or services that you utilize to support your operations from a security perspective, such as vulnerability management. You can even have cloud-based EDR or IPS or any of those other items. All of those systems and services generate logs. The configuration, it's either managed centrally or depending upon the application, you have to manage it locally or per service. But all of those, the logs that they're generating really speak to, first and foremost, the detective capabilities within your organization. And what I'm getting at with detective capabilities, and you may kind of chuckle a little bit, Rob, when I mentioned this because it's specific, honestly, to some of the CMMC components, is those logs provide the ability to trace specific actions to either individuals, processes, or systems within your environment. Now, the challenge that a lot of folks have, and we had when we first started looking at this, is another component of CMMC, which deals with log correlation and aggregation. Can the SIEM come into the enclave? Should it be self-contained? Really, what are we going to do? So we had to answer those questions ourselves, and at that point in time, we decided to keep them separate just so we could have one self-contained within the enclave. That way there was no questions around what data, was being pulled from the log files. Would any of that log file data have CUI in it? Usually the answer is no, but in some situations it could be maybe. But those were some of the questions that we had to ask ourselves. And once you understand, where all the various logs are coming from, that log correlation and aggregation piece is the other part that a lot of folks struggle with. And the easiest way to solve it is with a SIEM or SIM, however you want to, pronounce it. However, the CMMC doesn't require that. If you want to, you can do it manually, but as an assessor, if you say you're doing it manually, you're going to have to provide evidence that you are doing it manually to the assessor. I know that's something that I would ask for if you told me that. But
Yeah, if I can jump in, I mean, that's a great point. Obviously, the route that we took incurred additional, finances, right? So it was an additional fee monthly on top of our cloud service provider. But again, pointing back to the manual correlation piece, that was something we did not want to do, nor did we have the resources to tackle that. So for us, the investment of doing that in the enclave was worthwhile.
no, you're absolutely correct. And the other caveat to this is, folks ask a lot of times, well, can my, the SIEM or SIM that I currently use, can it be utilized? The answer, honestly, is for the most part, probably. There's certain situations where if you're working within certain certified cloud infrastructures, they may or may not let certain vendors in. Unfortunately, I don't know all of that information off the top of my head. That's something you would have to discuss with. And when I say you, I'm talking to the folks that are listening. That they'll have to have that conversation. But from a general standpoint, it is really up to you how you want to implement it. And to Rob's point, the reason why we did it that way was, one, it solved a lot of the questions for us around, okay, we can use this other one, but we can use this one, and then we don't have to justify, why it's being allowed access. It's all self-contained. But it all depends on, what you need to do as an organization, because as Rob mentioned, there is a separate fee for that. And that's something that organizations, especially cost conscious organizations, have to decide for themselves.
Yeah, no, great point. And so for those organizations out there that really don't want to take that extra step and bifurcate it, can they use, if they've already got an existing SIM solution or SIEM within their organization, can they leverage that for the enclave and the CUI data?
They can leverage it. Again, it's going to come down to what data is it accessing and what's contained in the log files. And the reason why I mentioned that is because depending upon the answer depends on how much it's going to be scrutinized when it comes to an assessment. Because it's one thing if, you're just looking at a general, let's just say even an HR application in your organization or an HR system, versus you're looking at a system that is processing or producing or even storing CUI. What's contained in those log files, for the most part, shouldn't be considered CUI. However, there's always that caveat that, something gets picked up that you're not aware of, and now you're having to address it from an IR capacity versus accounting for it on the front end.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that's again, one of the things that led to our decision, to kind of utilize what was already up in the cloud environment, not just to keep it separated from the commercial side of our organization, but just in case, the CUI somehow ends up in one of the logs. We definitely did not want that transferred onto the commercial side. So again, organizations out there just have to take a look internally and see what's best for you. You can utilize current SIMs that you have. You got to be cautious. Make sure you review the logs, as Thomas has said. For CUI information, make sure it's not there. We didn't want to mess with any of that, so we just kept it separated. I know there are some organizations that are following that kind of methodology, so it's really entirely up to them. One of the things that we can do to assist the clients, we do have logging monitoring capabilities that we can provide for organizations. We do have to keep in mind that if we are doing your certification, that's not a service that we can provide you because we don't want a conflict of interest. But, if that's an area that you need assistance with, please contact us and let us know. Anything else on the logging capabilities, Thomas?
Sure. So just a couple other points for folks to kind of keep and be aware of. Not only do you have to have evidence of these logs, but there's other items that are built into the CMMC model, NIST 800-171 and even NIST 853, around, okay, you're collecting the logs, but now can you produce reports off of them? Can you filter the results? What's contained within the log files? Do you alert on logging failure? Ensuring that whatever your capability is can address each of these individual items is something else that when you're looking at either what you have currently or for organizations like ourselves, like you mentioned, where we can help you with that, can you account for these individual components? Because, just going back to what you were mentioning earlier about when we were going through our own journey, it wasn't logging, but, we were looking at a different service to provide a different capability. And we thought the approval was there until literally the 9th hour, and then found out they weren't approved to connect in. And so we had to pivot really in a short amount of time. So please, start asking yourself these questions now, and start, understanding what you do and do not have in place.
Yeah, the other thing you need to do is, just a reminder, is control who has access to the logs for reviewing, right? And make sure that they cannot tamper with them. Because typically you want timestamps with your logs for the audit capabilities that Dr. Graham's kind of mentioned here. So, but again, if organizations out there, you need assistance, please reach out to us. We can talk this strategy in depth. We can help you come up with a plan for your logging capabilities. We can even assist you in monitoring your logs for you if your resources are limited. Definitely don't try to tackle this on your own. Remember, we're here. Reach out to us if you need us. With that, thank you guys for your time, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Have a good one, everyone.